Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're holding this special council meeting to consider the adoption of the 24-25 annual budget and for the proposed variation to opening hours for the Donnybrook and Balingup waste management sites. I'll begin by acknowledging the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including traditional custodians of this land, the Wadundee and Kaniang people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders past and present. I'll declare the meeting open at 5:02 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council Policy EM CP2. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. Whilst every endeavour has been made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises may be picked up on the recording. Welcome to everyone in the gallery and those participating through our live stream service. In attendance tonight, we have Councillor Alexis Davey, Councillor Anne Mitchell, Councillor Peter Glover, Councillor Grant Patrick, Councillor Anita Lindeman, and sitting with me here is to my left, CEO Tim Clinch, and Manager Corporate Services Lauren Clifford, and Administration Officer Corporate Services, Samantha Farquhar. And to my right is Stuart Eaton, Manager Finance and Projects, and Ross Marshall, Director of Operations. And sitting in the gallery is Acting Director of Finance and Corporate, Morris Batalana. Apologies for the meeting. Councillor Lisa Glover, Deputy President, and Councillor Diana Shand. There are no approved leave of absences and there's no application for leave of absence at this point. Is there any applications to be made? No. We have no announcements. Declarations of interest at item 4. Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995 states that care should be taken by all councillors to ensure that a financial impartiality interest is declared and that they refrain from voting on any matter which is considered to come within the ambit of the Act. Are there any declarations of interest? Item 5, public question time. And there are no responses to previous questions that were taken on notice. So we move on to item 6, petitions, presentations, deputations and delegates' reports. We have none tonight. At item 7, we have no reports of committees. Taking us to item 8, reports of officers. At item 8.1.1, change to waste facility operating hours. Director of Operations, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam President. If I may, the changes are relatively simple in the sense that, and for clarity, the changes are on the Monday and the Tuesday and Wednesday, where we've swapped Tuesday and Wednesday and actually added an hour. And Monday's changed from morning to afternoon. And then at Balingup, and sorry, that was for Donnybrook Waste Management Facility. And in Balingup, we've just swapped the days Tuesday and Wednesday. The main reason for the change is obviously in the report, and particularly just to meet some of our requirements under the licence for this facility, which is, I can pleasantly say, has just been issued 2 days ago. And the requirement to cover the waste at the end of each day. So at the moment, the general waste is taken to the landfill at a time when there's actually no active staff on site. So to mitigate waste being blown around or from the site, these changes will help us meet that licence requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Lindeman, second. Councillor Patrick. Councillor Lindeman, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Patrick.
No, look, personally, I don't see any concerns or issues. I haven't been contacted by anyone from the community to identify any concerns or issues, so I have no reason to believe that there's any concerns. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Davey.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So this seems like a really sensible approach to meet the licence condition, and it's good to see the Shire worked with the contractor to find a practical solution. I was just wondering whether the contractor has commented on the amount of people, or if there's any regular attendees they get on the days that will no longer be available.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Director of Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Councillor Davey. It's actually interesting, the contractor offered up the changes, particularly for the Monday morning. I won't actually say what he said, but basically it's pretty slow on a Monday morning. Seems to be quite a rush towards the end of the morning shift. So they actually see a fair bit of benefit in particularly changing the Monday time period. The other days, you know, with the data that I've seen, it's probably unremarkable. So really, it's really just anecdotal feedback that these changes are seen to be quite positive.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Okay, we'll put that to the vote. All in favour? Carried. Moving on to 8.2.1, the adoption of the 24-25 annual budget. Would CEO Clinch, are we talking to this item, or are we just going to open it up for passing? You'll speak to the item. Thank you.
Oh, very briefly, Madam President. I mean, councillors obviously would be very familiar with the contents. So there's been 12 separate sort of budget workshop sessions over the course of, I think, close to 6 months. So it's been quite comprehensively considered by council or councillors. There is an attachment, a budget overview, which is quite a in-depth, I guess, provides an in-depth information about how the budget's structured and its content. I'll probably leave it at that for now, Madam President, and see if there's if any questions, or during debate, happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Would someone like to move the motion? Councillor Patrick. The second. Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Look, first of all, I'd like to thank the administration for the work that's gone into this. I think the budget itself is very transparent, easy to read and informative. So congratulations to those involved in doing that and getting it to this point. Obviously, you know, even as councillors, no one wants to put rates up, and we know that that is an implication of this budget. However, a lot of work has been done again by the administration, particularly to minimise that impact as best as possible. I think council, as well as the community, are well aware that there are, I say, financial concerns around, you know, our current situation, particularly in relation to reserves. And I think that the outcome that's gone into this is as best as it can be. I do acknowledge that, yes, that there are, you know, significant financial implications around the VC Mitchell Park. A lot of us wish there wasn't, but there is, and the fact of the matter is that it is what it is at this stage. And that comment, I'm sure, will get feedback in itself. But ultimately, I think as I said, it's the best outcome that we probably could have hoped for from a budget point of view, and it's going a long way towards re-establishing particularly those reserves into the future. I think, it's a good budget given the conditions and the situation that we're in.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Lindemann.
Yeah, sure. I would agree with most of that as well. The goal here is to improve our financial stability, and I think we're doing that incrementally in a measured way. It looks like the best outcome. No one wants rates to go up. I do think that occasionally people forget the people sitting around this table all pay those rates as well. So we know what it will mean to people financially, but we also know that this is the way forward, and it's done measured and within our means. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Against or for?
I have great reservations about the budget. I would like to see that our new CEO, Nick, I'd like to, I'm sure he's watching in, but I would like to look at in the next 12 months to gain a 1% additional funds into reserves and the direct result of cutting costs. I understand that we've already made some headway with a 0.6 FTE instead of a full-time. I was looking at providing some other information, but obviously it didn't work out that way due to multiple reasons. So I basically, yes, I'm sorry, ratepayers, it is 10% and I will vote for it. However, I am looking at substantial, at least a 1%, 72,500 additional to go into reserves by the end of the financial year by additional savings across the board. And very conservative recruitment on a vacant position. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Would anyone else like to speak to the budget? Councillor Davey?
I have a question again, if I can ask that, please.
Thank you.
For item number 3, where if you adopt the rate by instalment, you pay an administrative fee once for option 2 and 3 times for option 3. And you also pay a 5.5% interest, I think, for the rates paid by instalments. I just wanted to understand, at face value, it looks like the people who can't afford to pay their rates up front the ones that are paying more, which isn't ideal. I know that's the status quo, and it's the way it's always worked. But I'd really like to understand if it's on a needs basis that we charge this 5.5%, and also whether the instalment is a cost recovery or it actually makes us money, the administrative fee. So just what is that worth to the Shire administration, and is it something we could look at in future?
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Manager of Finance Projects.
Thank you, Madam President. Thanks for the question. When Council adopts annual budget, it's required to set a due date for when rates are due, and that's by default. Council may, in addition to setting that due date, set instalment payment arrangements for those, as you say, may not be able to afford or don't wish to pay in one lump sum. We offer an alternative additional payment option. Those instalment options incur additional cost to council in terms of administrative costs, so that relates to the administration fee in terms of postage, debt collection and the like. However, the interest rate is compensation for lost investment interest that would have been earned if we just had a single due date, and that quantifies to $23,000 in the budget. If that instalment rate was not included in the budget, that $23,000 would have to be met either broadly across all ratepayers, even those paid in advance, or other savings in the budget. But in essence, it's to compensate for the loss of investment earned we would have earned if we had a single due date applied to all ratepayers.
Thank you, Manager Projects, Finance Projects. Is there anyone else first? Question?
It's a question,
Question,
yeah,
thank
and it
you.
is actually
Councillor.
following on from that. And I just thought, where it says per annum interest rate of 5.5, is that, when is that payable? Is that every instalment has then a 5.5 added to that instalment for that year?
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann.
Through the chair, the rating system will calculate on a pro rata basis based on the balance. If a ratepayer pays more through the year, the system will calculate that rate based on the balances of time they pay that instalment.
Thank you.
And sorry, this might be just one more from that. If it was not paid within that 12-month clicking over, what happens from that point on? Is it continuing to be 5.5 for the next year, or is it compounding?
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann.
The interest rate is compounded based on the penalty. It becomes a penalty payment then, as the rates are not due. So if they're not paid by the due date at this stage, then the penalty interest rate will take over, which is 11%.
Thank you.
Truck was going past, I just missed that last bit, please.
So once the due date expires for each instalment, then the penalty interest rate will take over, which is 11% per annum, in addition to the instalment amount.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? I'd like to express my thanks to, firstly, to the Manager for Finance Projects for embarking on the arduous task of building this budget up from a zero base. It wasn't just courageous, it was well done. And I'd like to thank you for bringing those elements as you were exploring those, both yourself and CEO Clinch, bringing those to our workshops, and erstwhile CEO Hunt, who led us through the 12 workshops that we've encountered. It was very, very well done and very well informed. We felt very well informed in the decisions that we were making, and to the point where we felt confident in most areas. And that was a formidable effort. And so thank you, Executive, and your teams, because they've also contributed. I'd also like to thank councillors for sitting through those 12 workshops and living on sandwiches and sausage rolls, and just for the dedication and the time spent trying to understand the budget parameters. And I'd also like to thank our community for trusting us to come to this point. The budget is a pivotal budget, and it's a step change towards addressing our long-term financial stability, and it's just the beginning. The 10% rate rise is the beginning of other strategies that we are going to continue to explore throughout the year. And Councillor Mitchell's point, there's more to be done, and also the work that we are embarking upon to rationalise our assets and explore other opportunities to ensure our long-term financial position. So I'm very much in favour of the budget as a first step towards turning the tide. Would anyone else like to make any comment before I throw back to Councillor Patrick to close? No? Okay, we'll put that to vote. All those in favour of the draft 24-25 budget? Carried. There are no further items to cover in this meeting. Item 9, elected member motions. There are none. There is no new business of an urgent nature introduced by our decision, and there is nothing to explore behind scenes, so the meeting doesn't need to be closed to the public. So I will declare the meeting closed, advising first that the agenda briefing session will be held following this meeting here in the council chambers. So we'll declare the meeting closed at 5:21 p.m.